What's good, everybody, and welcome to Body Bag Podcast. I'm Chris Thomas, and with me, as always, Broke Writer Dave.
How we doing, everybody?
It is season. What season are we on there, Dave?
Season number 4.
Season number 4. So we have to come in strong. So we always have to start off with a guest. And this one, also recommended from Twins and Talent, from Hannah and Haley there. And we're going to talk about his debut novel, if I'm not mistaken, Toothe Fairy. Davide Tarsitano. I pray I said it correctly for the first time.
Hello, guys. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
so
you
much
for being here.
yeah. My apologies last time we had to reschedule work-related things. I always hate being that guy having to reschedule things, but I appreciate you understanding.
No worries at all.
So we're gonna talk about your debut novel, The Toothe Fairy, if I'm not mistaken. That's your most recent novel.
Yes, that's my first one, my debut novel. It's been published in March 2022 this year, and yeah, it's my first attempt, let's say, at getting serious at the craft of writing.
How's the reception been so far?
It's been quite good. I mean, as a self-published author, I really wanted to self-publish my first book because I really wanted to learn the process of the publishing, and I honestly really like the idea of having some creative control. From the editing part, which I still did with, professional editors, going through the designing of the cover. That was really, really cool. Plus, all the marketing and social media. That's been, I would say, the most challenging part for me because I basically knew nothing about it. But it was really good to learn, how the industry works behind the scenes. So it's been pretty good so far. The book is available on Amazon in paperback, hardcover, Kindle, and it's also on Kindle Unlimited. And I have to say the reviews that I've got back so far are pretty positive. So yeah, pretty happy about it.
Yeah, I'd say I'm about 75% of the way through the book, and yeah, it got me hooked. I was almost late to get into the recording because I was sitting there reading it. Yeah,
That's
really
good.
enjoying it.
Thanks.
So this being your debut novel, your first venture, I guess, into serious, I'm taking this seriously. Now that your actual first one is done, do you find that are the ideas now kind of flooding in now that you got one idea out there? You go, all right, now it was like the heavy lifting is done. It's the first one, it's done. Is it easier now to kind of write? Are you in some more projects now?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So in my whole life, I've wrote a lot of things just for myself, let's say. This, started really when I was about 14, 15, and all my initial works are in Italian because I'm from Italy originally. But yeah, I have a lot of ideas in my drawers, and this was the very first one that I thought it had, say, a pretty good potential. But yeah, I am already working on my second one now, and it's definitely relieving for new ideas because once you do your first one, at least I guess you're just more experienced about how to go with it.
A lot of your unanswered questions, you've been through the process. It's not lingering over your head.
Exactly. Yeah. So definitely it's been relieving. It's been a weight off my shoulder in a good way, let's say. And now, I'm working on my second one.
Do you have a title, or do you not want to drop that just yet?
I don't have a title yet. I'm just about 10,000 words in. I hope to have my amended manuscript sometime around March, April of next year. Yeah, then I'll go about publishing it.
Okay. I like that all of our author guests, the way they'll just casually say, I'm about 10,000 words. And I'm like, oh, man, God. 10,000.
Struggle to get there.
It sounds like nothing. I think Christopher Frost was the same way. I'm like, yeah, I'm 10,000 words into my next. I'm like, good Lord, I haven't even gotten through one of my stories yet.
10,000 words is honestly not a lot when you think about your first draft. Plus, it really depends on the writer. In my case, I really do not like to plot my story. I really just have some ideas that click together, and I just start, writing. And the characters are these shades. I don't know anything about them. What I really enjoy about writing in the end is really, letting the story guiding me, letting the story, introducing me to my characters and develop from there. I don't have I rarely have ideas about how the story is going to go. That's why 10,000 words for me is not really that much. I don't have a title yet. I don't know how this story is gonna develop yet.
I kind of like that. You
Yeah.
say you don't. So when you write, you say you don't necessarily know right off where the story is going to go. Usually, if I have a idea, I know exactly what the beginning and end is going to be, and it's that how do I get from A to B is the hard part.
Yeah, I mean that's totally, like it's really subjective, I guess in the end, and it's whatever works for the writer. In my opinion, I mean, it just for the way I am, it just takes out a little bit of the fun part of character development.
I like that.
Yeah. So it's just again, it's just very subjective. It's just the way it works for me.
Yeah, I just like hearing, everybody has a process, and I just like hearing everybody's process and how certain things work for people. It's just
I mean, I've heard
cool.
James Joyce always started writing the last page of his book, and maybe it took him like years to finish a book. So there are really prolific authors that are able to stay on a schedule and just write plotting it, write without plotting it, writing from the end, going back to the start. I mean, it's really, that's the beauty of it, right? Like it works differently for everyone.
Well, Dave actually, since he's about 75% of the way through Toothe Fairy, he probably has a couple of questions more specifically about that.
Yeah. So we'll start with the beginning of the book, that opening chapter. Yep. Which is phenomenal because it actually is kind of like the middle part of the book. It's Johnny's kind of like aftermath dealing with the Toothe Fairy, where he has some tooth pulled. So how did you go about starting the book with that chapter? Like, I always think that's interesting, starting with like a part of the book that actually happens later on.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And actually, in my very first draft of the book didn't start with that opening scene. So that's exactly what I mean about when I say that, I don't like to plot. I don't like to structure my book from the get-go, because I just wrote. And at some point, I just had this incredible scene, and I was really proud of it when I wrote it. So, working with my editors, we just thought that it would be a great idea to actually start the book with that opening scene and, just throw like this flashback. At the beginning of the book, and just then, start from the beginning in chapter 2. So it wasn't planned, let's say, but it was a good decision, I guess, to put it there, because a lot of my reviews, they're really positive about that opening scene.
Oh yeah, it definitely gets you hooked right from the beginning.
Before we actually go a little bit further into it, do you want to just maybe in like a sentence or two say what overall the Toothe Fairy is about, just for readers who might not know, a little taste of what it is?
Yeah. So to me, the Toothe Fairy is a story that talks about trauma. It talks about, let's say, lack of love. It talks about abuse. And it's the combination of all these very bad things and the effect that they can have, like on the human mind. They can create these very dark places in our head, and when it's like that much, it can really, it's about mental health in the end. It's a psychological thriller that talks about everything that basically should not happen to people, especially to a child, because all this trauma then can very, very quickly mutate into some disorders. And in the case of the Toothe Fairy, in let's say dissociative identity disorder or multiple personality disorders. So the Toothe Fairy is a malevolent side of one of the characters' personality, and so the whole book to me is about the fight that happens between the main personality and this let's say side personality in her subconscious. So this is a very generic, very high level the way I would describe my book.
Okay. Back to you, Dave.
Yeah, it's so that fits very well with what I read so far. So just going with the three main characters is Johnny, Jamie, and then Wendy.
Yes.
And they all just kind of meet kind of by chance and coincidence.
Yes.
Like, how did you go about like structuring that? Because that's a very interesting way to have like your main characters interconnect instead of already knowing each other before the story starts.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the common element I would say between the three main characters is clearly like a bad situation that
Yeah,
they
running
were all,
away. Yeah,
yeah, exactly, they were all like kind of like broken people at some level in different measures. um and Johnny is definitely the one I started from. um I would say so Johnny's struggle is more like let's say probably is the easiest struggle between the
yeah,
three. Let's say the least difficult situation. So of course he has a pretty bad experience with his wife cheating on him.
yeah,
His work life is kind of crumbling. He's living kind of like existential crisis at some point in his life.
yeah,
He starts like doubting about everything. So he just literally decides to basically take off, right? So
yeah,
to leave everything and just try to start, a new chapter of his life. And on the road, while he's trying to get to LA on his dad's car, which is
yeah,
yeah, it's another pretty cool element of the book. Um, he basically finds Jamie. Jamie is a guy that had a pretty difficult family to an abusive dad, living in poverty.
yeah,
So you know is hitchhiking on the highway on the Route
yeah,
66 actually trying to get to LA as well. So when the two meet at this gas station, there is like this immediate connection between the two of them. And Johnny has been kind of an asshole in the first part of his life, so he's trying to
yeah,
turn things around. Sort of like a karma decision, to take
yeah,
him on for the ride. And so yeah, so that's the way the friendship starts.
yeah,
On a completely different island, Wendy, which by the way was my favorite character. To me,
yeah,
really, a lot of people have asked me, why did you spend more time on Wendy than your main character, Johnny? And my answer is always, well, to me, in my mind, really, the main character is Wendy.
yeah,
Wendy, can look like the antagonist, but it's actually the victim of the story, and it's definitely the character I sympathized with the most. Out of the three of them, Wendy comes also from a very, very difficult childhood. Her mom died when she was really young. Her dad suffered like a mental breakdown from that loss, and he
yeah,
started, getting into drugs. And yeah, basically she had to kind of raise herself, which I think it's, a story that, it's not that uncommon in our days.
no,
And yeah, all that trauma, all that abuse has definitely turned into something evil inside herself that she would like to control, but she just can't.
yeah. Wendy's yeah, probably one of my favorite characters as well.
Um, if I may,
Yep.
uh, so you said this has to do with a lot of trauma and a lot of mental health and whatnot. Did you find yourself doing a lot of research into psychology in order to like tap into how much research was, I guess, involved, if any, to
Yeah,
in that
yeah,
regard?
there was definitely some, especially I did not want to. I wanted to give justice, to people that struggle with mental health, and especially with dissociative identity disorder, which is pretty serious. I mean, I had the fortune to have my wife. She's actually very involved with psychology for her job. She
Okay.
works with a lot of people that struggle mentally. So she was able, to give me a lot of information, plus some additional research that went into it. I did not want to make it like super, let's say, scientific and super researchy. I
Hmm.
still wanted
Yeah.
let's say, the fictional level to be the dominant one, but I definitely wanted to get the elements right about how these, um, let's say, transitions between personalities happen, to real people, not just
Hmm.
from what I've seen like in other movies or, read in other books.
That's
Yeah.
definitely something I know uh, is difficult with with writing is how much of it do you want it to sound legit, and how much, or do you want to get too bogged down in jargon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where do you find the balance of, all right, I'll put just enough truth in there, and then I can let the fiction take over.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
It's just about writing, finding that right balance. Let's say where you're happy with how many details you gave out,
Hmm.
but without letting that become like a scientific article,
Yeah.
about mental health.
So, I just want to know how you got to picking Copper City, New Mexico for the place of everything coming together.
Yep.
Because it just kind of, well, I mean, I love New Mexico. I've always wanted to move out there. But there's not a lot of stories that take place out there. So I just found that interesting that that's where you chose for it for everything to collide.
Yep. So that's not a really good one. So the idea for Copper City, which is a fictional, let's say, city in New
Yeah.
Mexico, came in my mind actually because I traveled on the Route 66 just for a vacation
Yeah.
with a friend of mine back in 2014. And
Okay.
I just remember very clearly this very small, creepy town, which gave me a lot of, kind of like the Derry vibes from Stephen King or like Castle Rock.
Hmm.
So
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, these cities that literally where you can feel there is something just a little bit off,
A little
or
ominous in the
Yeah.
air. It's like,
exactly, just like that. And so that's one of the ideas that I just put in my drawer after that trip. And when I needed it, I just literally,
Yeah.
it was in my mind to say, yeah, that's the place. That's how actually the all New Mexico, let's say, set was born in the Tooth Fairy. Because when I started the book, I had no idea that the events would actually unfold there.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Because there's that one line in the book by Mr. Bull. He's like, "Yeah, it's quiet here, but it's not peaceful."
Yes.
Kind of gives that city the whole ominous vibe. Like there's a lot more going on below the surface.
Yes. There is actually a chapter. Well, it's not really a chapter. It's more like a scene of, I believe, chapter 6, where there is like a very not a very deep digression in the events that have unfolded in Copper City, back in the
Yeah.
days, which is kind of narrated from an external narrator point of view, which is a writing technique that I really really love from Stephen King. So Stephen King uses that a lot, in many of his books, and I just had to have my shot at it.
Yeah. So I have a couple more questions for you. This one, if Tooth Fairy was being made into a movie, who would you want to play the three main characters of Johnny, Wendy, and Jamie? And then who would you want to direct it?
That's a really good question. I would say so. When I was writing the story, for example, I was thinking, so for Johnny, I mean, it's kind of weird because you don't have like a specific, let's say, actor in mind.
Yeah.
But I would say probably Matthew McConaughey would be like a good Johnny in my mind.
Okay.
Um, Jamie, I'm not entirely sure, to be honest with you. It really didn't take shape as like as an actor or something like
Yeah.
that. Um, for Wendy, I always thought about, for example, like Margot Robbie being the actress, but let's say like a black hair version of Margot Robbie.
Okay.
black hair Margot Robbie. I like it.
I'd watch it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the way. I've actually got this question a lot, from many people.
Yeah.
Oh, who you cast it?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, do we have a director?
Oh, the director. Good question. Um, I like the idea of having Jordan Peele directing this movie, actually.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Could be a
Jordan
good one.
Peele.
Yeah.
He's been killing it, yeah.
Jordan Peele is still kind of in that stage of his fans think he can do no wrong. He's still riding that right now.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
mean, ever since Get Out,
Yeah.
he's still
Yeah.
riding on that Get Out
Yeah.
Wave, I guess.
wave, yeah. But I
Yeah.
still haven't seen Nope yet though, so I don't know if it's good or not.
I have actually, and it's very different. I think he literally steered away from, Get Out,
I think
Us.
he kind of has to. I'm
Yeah.
sure he's trying to put as much distance between him and Get Out as possible, so he can be known for other stuff.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
clearly steering away from that. I think he's just exploring different things. I think it was really interesting. It wasn't exactly the Jordan Peele movie that um, I really, really enjoyed, but it's still a good one.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I'll. I mean, I've only seen Get Out. I keep saying I'm gonna watch Us, but
Us is pretty good, yeah. And I've been
I love
planning on
that.
watching Nope for like the past week, so now it's streaming on Peacock, but just every time I plan to sit down and watch it, something comes up.
Yep.
well, I still got a couple of days off for before I got to go back to work. Maybe I'll finally
Yeah.
watch all of these movies that I keep putting on my list. So.
So also I see that you work in like race cars.
Yeah. So yeah, my day job, I'm an actual race car engineer.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, I work in the North American motorsport industry,
Mm.
especially in IndyCar series and sports car
Okay.
series. So the old Indy 500 deal, which
Right.
I guess it kind of like let's say went into the book when I was
Yeah.
talking about Johnny's dad, his garage, all his, let's say,
Tool. Yeah.
tools and history from the Indy 500 back in the days, which is a pretty iconic
Race.
event
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
United States. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you were able to take anything from that into writing.
I thought about it, but honestly, the genre that I want to explore in my writing is very, very different from that. So all I
Yeah.
can do is really just drop some elements from that word. But I mean, maybe, who knows? Maybe in the future I'll be able to make it click with racing.
All right. Chris, do you have any questions or?
I think I've asked mine as we've kind of gone along.
All right.
Was that the last bit for you?
Yeah, that was the last I had.
All right. Well, I guess before we make our transition into the movie topic, Davide, do you want to tell the people where they can find you online and whatnot?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, my book is available on Amazon in many formats: paperback, hardcover, Kindle, and it's also on Kindle Unlimited. As far as my social media, you guys can find me on Instagram at the Tarsitano official. You can find me on Facebook at Davide Tarsitano dash author. You can also find me on Twitter at the Tarsitano01. And of course, you can also find me on Goodreads. I'm a Goodreads author, so you can find my book there. I would love to read everyone's reviews on both Amazon and Goodreads.
And everybody be on the lookout. This is the season premiere of season 4, and we have to have a giveaway. So first and second place, who all subscribe for the giveaway, first and second place both will get a copy of Toothe Fairy. So be on the lookout for that as well. Okay, so first bad movie of season 4. Halloween Ends. So we leave it up to the viewers or the guests to choose the movie that we'll be talking about. So, Davide, you feel some kind of way about Halloween Ends?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty gentle with my movie reviews, but Halloween Ends was definitely one I did not enjoy. I mean, I wanna just give a little bit of background. I really think Halloween from John Carpenter is probably the greatest horror movie that I've ever seen. So, I went for the whole franchise. I went in with a lot of expectations about what I was going to watch. And, I have to say that the old David Gordon Green trilogy, was already kind of in decline for me compared to the original trilogy. But yeah, Halloween Ends was just like the cherry on top of the cake. I just felt it was really, really predictable. I really enjoyed the opening scene. That's probably the only 10 minutes that I liked about the movie.
I told Dave that I watched what was that little kid's name? Not Jeremy. Jeremy get hit and fall down the stairs at least 5 times?
Yeah. Yeah, that was a good scene.
Yeah.
I actually, I think the frustrating thing about this movie, well, first off, this movie's been pretty much reviewed by everybody. So if you, and I imagine if you're here, you have seen Halloween Ends, because everybody, it pissed a lot of people off. I know that.
Yeah. Some people loved it, but it also pissed a lot of people off. Yeah.
So instead of going like point by point, this would happen, this would happen, this would happen, why don't we just bring up some of the main things that everybody had problems with? And I told Dave, I'll actually play a little bit of devil's advocate with this, and I don't love it, but I'll defend certain parts of it.
Okay, I feel like this movie very much was kind of like a bait and switch type things, because if you watch all the previews, it's all about Michael and Laurie. So when you watch the movie, you realize all the scenes with Michael in it were in the previews. They use every single Michael scene in the previews.
Yeah, the biggest culprit of this whole thing
Corey.
Is the marketing around it is the biggest culprit of this, I believe.
Yeah, it's very carny.
But I think the thing that's the most frustrating is that as I was watching it, there are some good things about it that could have worked. But, if this is supposed to be Michael's big send-off, right? This is supposed to be the end of the Michael Myers and Laurie Strode chapter, the final farewell thing. And I don't know, I didn't find it entertaining to see Michael Myers as a feeble old man.
Yeah.
Who gets beat up by the guy who gets beat up by the marching band.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree on that one.
That's not what fans want to see if they know that this is going to be like because if you're marketing it as a big showdown, it's kind of hard when you have one as a feeble old man and the other one is Jamie Lee Curtis, who is an elderly woman. I mean, how badass can this kind of be? But
yeah, I'm with you on that one. Also, another thing that kind of like didn't go well with me in general is the whole attempt to make Corey become the new Michael Myers. I mean, that kind of like, transition was something that was really, really predictable for me in the movie. Like, since the first 20-30 minutes where Corey, was, clearly moody, struggling, and, almost finding that darkness inside himself, it was so clear that at some point in the movie it would meet Michael Myers.
I think the problem with it is that they introduced Corey, this brand new character, at the very last minute. I think if they were going to try to do this Corey thing, he should have been introduced either in Halloween 2018 or Halloween Kills. But you're just throwing this brand new character and expecting us to care about them.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good point.
Because
I also don't like how this movie is like tone shift from the first two. Like the first two are super like
felt like
they're slasher movies, and then this one's kind of like
a coming of age.
We want to be age
24
so bad.
It felt like a coming of age teen romance.
It did have that Romeo and Juliet type feel with the Alice and Corey storyline.
Now, I don't have any problem with the director trying something new, because this actually got compared to Halloween Season of the Witch by a lot of people, because much like Season of the Witch, it wasn't what people were expecting, and there was a very severe lack of Michael Myers.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I can kind of appreciate that he probably thought, well, Season of the Witch now has a cult following and is appreciated by fan base, so they'll appreciate what I'm doing with this. But I can't help but think that if you're gonna try to do that experimental thing, do that in Halloween Kills, gauge people's reactions to see if they liked it or not.
Yeah.
Don't gamble on, all right, this is how we're gonna end it. Don't take that gamble.
And I'm pretty sure in Halloween Season of the Witch they didn't have Michael Myers in all of the previews.
Nope, and he only made one cameo, and that was on the commercial that they were watching for it.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you, if this was not a Halloween movie, like if Michael Myers was just like, this movie is just crazed killer or whatever, how do you think it would have fared as a standalone if it didn't have the Halloween attachment to it? I'm talking about as like a standalone story.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to imagine that, when you talk to Michael Myers.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I just felt like it was lacking like too many things. So it was lacking the presence of the killer, let's say the main killer, too much.
Mm-hmm.
I think like Dave pointed out as well, it was probably like 15 minutes of him in the whole movie.
Half of which he was getting beat up and
exactly.
I think his actual screen time was like 9 minutes and like 40 something seconds.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, it's pretty, let's say, weak villain, like you guys are saying. So I don't know if being a standalone would have saved, the whole execution, in my opinion. Probably not.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, this originally it was all supposed to take place on one night, right? But COVID made it have to get broken up. Was that the reason why it's 4 years later instead of the same night?
Yeah, I think the screenwriters and the director just kind of overthought it during COVID and rewrote the script.
Because I think that this would have been genius if this all took place in 3 movies. It all took place in one night, and Halloween Ends would have been a great title because it's like the end of one horrible Halloween night. That would have been great. Yeah. But if you watch these movies back to back to back, like you said, there's that tonal shift because weird stuff too. Like Laurie spent 40 years being afraid of Michael Myers.
Yeah.
To the point where she was trained every day and everything like that. Now Michael killed her daughter, but she's like kind of over it now. She's like, I bought a home in the suburbs. I'm writing my memoirs. And it's like, the Laurie I think that you guys had built up would have been scouring the city trying to find Michael had he killed her daughter.
Right. Yeah, that didn't make sense to me either. It's like, he kills your daughter, so you just kind of
now is enough.
Yeah.
Like, I'm fairly certain, and hanging out in the sewers where all the homeless people live, which is kind of like where, to me, the most obvious place a crazed killer would go.
Yeah.
Would hide.
Yeah, and nobody thought to look there. But I kind of liked the idea of what they were trying to do about plunging Haddonfield into like chaos, where it's just everybody's like pretty much like killing each other, basically.
Yeah.
And I thought that concept, which is what they were setting up with Kills, I think that would have been great. But it was 4 years later, and all of this still that 4-year gap really. I have a problem with.
Yeah, and people sit there blaming Laurie for Michael killing people. It's like, what the fuck did she do?
Yeah, I thought the same when I was watching it. Everyone, it's like she was the killer, not Michael Myers.
Yeah, and it was that great value Dr. Loomis that broke Michael out in the first place to bring him to Laurie. So,
also, I'm gonna say something which I don't know if you guys agree with, but I feel like Laurie and Michael had such a, let's say, deep connection, like they were pretty much like the nemesis of one another, that I would have expected them to actually end together, if that makes sense to you guys.
Like they die together?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm teetering between would fans prefer Laurie die with Michael or be able to have a happy ending? Because I know I've heard people who actually do like that Laurie kind of gets a little bit of a happy ending. But yeah, in my mind, Laurie and Michael, like when the trailers came out, in my mind, that was how I pictured it ending was with both of them dying like together.
Yeah, like that. I think you could make that work.
You could do that in a way. You can kill off Laurie and do it in a way where the fans would be satisfied that you gave her a proper send off.
Yeah, unlike Resurrection, where they just kind of killed her.
Yeah.
Now, quick question: of all of the Halloweens, worst one, yes or no? Of all the Halloweens that are out there,
maybe if not the worst one, probably the second worst one. My opinion.
What do you think? What do you think? Do you think it deserves like worst of the franchise status?
I think it's probably. I don't know. It's either that or Resurrection for me. Like those two are right there for the worst ones.
Yep.
But again, I have to say, I kind of respect the gamble that the guy was trying to take, because you can see where, the kind of direction that the story was trying to go. Like, but it also, I think it tried to take on too many things at once. Like, it wanted to be a passing of the torch movie, and it also wanted to be that the city itself is kind of turning evil.
Yeah.
Like, it felt like they wanted to go in two separate directions for the reason why things are the way they are.
Yeah.
That was like, all right, so was he evil, or did Michael pass something on to him? Like, who's the evil supposed to be here? Because y'all been saying like Michael was just pure evil, and then you're insinuating that it can be passed along, but you're also saying that the city is kind of being infected by this, the evilness being the mob mentality thing. Like, you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah. I've always seen it as Michael was evil, right? And his actions were actually kind of contagious and kind of bringing up the worst of people, which is not like a bad idea per se. I actually like that concept a lot. But yeah, it's hard to. I mean, I'm not sure if that can be the element that actually saves the movie.
I actually think this whole him having the ability to pass it on, that sounds more like a plot line that would have been in like when they had the Thorin cult.
Yeah.
That seems like a plot line that would have been more suited for that timeline. That it's like something that gets passed along from person to person. But again, it's just, I appreciate the gamble, but this was not the movie to do it with.
No.
Not the last one.
Especially with all the expectations that got set for people.
As the trailers came out, I just remember thinking, all right, you would have to kind of go out of your way to mess up this kind of finale, because all people want to see is Laurie versus Michael.
And they went all the way out of their way to fuck this up.
The city is in disarray. There's a citywide manhunt for Michael, and then it just comes down to Michael versus Laurie. And that's like a tight 90-minute movie. You would have had, everybody would have been like, mwah, perfect. But you went out of your way
to give us Corey. It wasn't a very likable antagonist at all.
Well, they threw him in at the very last minute. We have a town full of people that we've had 3 movies now to get to know, and then they throw in Corey. It's like, all right.
There's no background for him.
Yeah. Nothing to build him up. Yeah.
Because if you go into this movie and you're like, you don't see Michael until I think about 35 minutes in, when he drags him into the sewer. So you're going in there like amped up from the trailers, like and amped up after seeing Halloween Kills, like, oh man, the mob is out there. Michael's running around. He's super powered now because he just killed the mob. So he's like not at all the same Michael that we get in this movie.
And then this movie starts, you get the great opening scene, and you're like, all right, I'm in.
Kid dying.
Yeah.
And then can I throw something else in it?
Please.
I mean, the very final scene after, let's say, Michael dies, and that whole procession of the town bringing him, on top of the car to that kind of like meat masher kind of machine.
Oh, that car compactor thing.
Yeah, the compactor. Yeah, I mean, that was, I don't know.
How did all of you people know where did all you people come from?
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that could have been a great scene to have at the end of the movie if they gave us what they promised us, which was a Michael versus Laurie 90-minute movie where she finally comes out on top, and then they have that scene. I would like that a lot more then.
What'd y'all think of the romance subplot?
It was Romeo and Juliet. For some reason, you got to look at this movie. They've known each other for 3 days. That's it.
Yeah.
She's willing to be okay after he says, "I killed someone. It's okay, babe."
Yeah, let's just leave town together.
Let's leave town. Your grandma tried to kill me.
So he kills himself.
Sure, man, I just met.
Yeah.
Which I kept saying, man, I forget. So I kept thinking, he's a teenager, but I kept thinking he just looks like a full grown man. So I don't know that kind of.
I think he's like college age type deal. Yeah.
Getting again beat up by the marching band, but still strong enough to beat up Michael Myers.
Yeah.
Very rushed, in my opinion. Yeah, very, very hard to believe, let's say.
Yeah, I think they should at least introduce Corey in the first one.
If you wanted us to care, you could have had him. You could have had him, introduced him in this first one. In the second one, he could have had an encounter with Michael at some point. Michael could have let him go.
Yeah.
And then in the third one, that whole stuff could have happened, and we could have been like, "Oh crap, was it?"
Yeah, and also maybe show some flashbacks of Corey actually being like a copycat Michael Myers and killing some people.
I could have been into, like, if this was a buffer movie, if it didn't have Michael Myers, and if this was like a buffer movie between kills and ends, where it's just we see a hour and a half movie of a town like just being in the grips of fear, people like at each other's throats. You have a copycat killer. And then you go Halloween ends, and then you get to see Michael kill the copycat killer. Like that would have. Sorry, I'm just pitching a movie right now.
Yeah.
That's all.
I think that could have worked. I think, I mean, to summarize all the problems that this movie have, in my opinion, it would be, like you said, probably just like setting up the base of a trilogy on some elements, and then just go all the way out of them for the final one.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a well thought trilogy could have, made this end a lot better.
What did you think of 2018 and Halloween Kills?
They were not bad. I mean, again, when I go with the expectation of seeing like an original like slasher, just like the 1973, I think, Halloween, it's kind of hard to match. I'm just in love with that movie. So I'm not a big fan of like, keep going with these franchises like forever.
There are way too many movies that work perfectly well as a standalone that they try to milk.
Yeah.
Which
exactly.
I say the same thing. I'd much rather have same with TV series. I'd much rather just have a nice 1 or 2 season and then they just stop.
Exactly.
And end on a high note.
I'm with you. No, they weren't. I mean, they weren't nearly as bad as this one, in my opinion. But they kind of add element of weakness compared to what I think the original Halloween was.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this one was just like too much.
Yeah.
I'm with Dave when he says like between this and Resurrection. I mean, I couldn't pick the worst one between the two, honestly.
But here's the question: would you rather watch the Rob Zombie Halloween 1 and 2 or the Halloween Ends trilogy?
I haven't seen the second one in so long. I defend the first one. I think it's okay.
Yeah.
Nothing great, but it's okay.
Yeah.
I'd say Rob Zombie first one was better than Ends, definitely.
Yeah.
Agreed.
It's just Halloween with Rob Zombie's exploitation style shooting. So
yeah, I think I'm one of the few people that really enjoyed Rob Zombie's Halloween 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's in all honesty, it's exactly what you would think of for when you hear Rob Zombie doing Halloween. It's like exactly what it's
what you get.
It's get exactly what you pay for.
Yeah.
Why don't we go around to kills? Favorite kills of the movie, which there were a couple. Do any stand out? How about to you first there, Dave?
Kills of the movie. I'm not going to go with the easy one and say the kid at the beginning.
That brings me way too much joy than it should. I shouldn't be this happy about. But that kid was annoying.
Yeah, probably Corey killing the radio DJ because he got really vicious with that one.
I enjoyed the swimming pool one, or let's say the couple. I think it was Allison's colleague with her boss having that gay way. I enjoyed those two.
Mine's the DJ one too. Like when I saw that, I was like, okay, now this at first, with a kill like that, I'm almost willing to forgive the fact that you're Corey and not Michael Myers.
Yeah.
With a kill like that. That Andy got his tongue caught out. That was like a Art the Clown kind of kill.
Yeah.
Why couldn't we have had a lot of that? I mean,
Right?
I could have forgiven.
Yeah, that's what you want from a slasher, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Again, it made me forget that was Corey. And if you can do a copycat killer, fine. It's fine because you would get satisfaction. But they didn't give us the satisfaction of seeing Michael like beat his ass or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, you want to see Michael kick some ass before he goes down.
No, Michael just kind of followed him around like a puppy dog.
I always thought that it would have been impossible to steal Michael Myers' mask off him. Apparently not.
Yeah.
Now, I guess ratings here. We do you want to do it on my 30-point scale, or do you want to try to just do it on your own kind of scale, Dave?
I'm gonna do it on your 30-point scale.
All right, so we have a 30-point scale. Let's see if it makes sense. It's divided into 3 parts: a bad movie, okay movie, and a good movie. 0 to 10 is a bad movie. 11 to 20 is a okay movie, and 20 to 30 is a very good movie. Where would you kind of rate this?
All right, I would probably give this movie an 11 because it wasn't shot bad. It was shot pretty well, but it's not enjoyable to watch at all. So yeah, I'd probably give it an 11.
11?
Yeah.
What about you there, Davide?
I mean, probably in your scale, it would be 8 or 9.
8 or 9?
Yeah, it would be definitely in the category of the bad movie. So it's a 1 to 10.
It's like it's a bad movie, but it's like not shot the worst, and it's
exactly. It has some interesting, let's say, technical elements.
They did play with some reflections a couple of times that I thought was pretty nice. I think that's what frustrates a lot of people too, is that when you see elements of stuff in the movie that is good, that you're just like, yeah, but you could have had it with Michael Myers, and you could have had all of these nice things too. So what you said, 12, Dave?
11.
11. I'm gonna go with a 12.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go with 12. There were elements that worked, and that if it was a separate movie, if this was a buffer movie between kills and ends, I think it would have worked a lot better.
Yeah,
but it's just a victim of bad marketing is all. Like if they put out there that this is kind of how we're going, then people wouldn't have been as upset. They'd have been like, all right, well, I'd rather it be about Michael, but at least they told us.
Yeah.
So, but you know what? It's definitely a bad movie, but certainly not the worst that I know me and Dave have seen. Certainly didn't make us angry like a whole lot of these movies. Like the last 2 Christmas movies.
About it. Yeah. Oh no, not that bad.
Christmas and Hanukkah movie.
Yeah,
awful.
Black Christmas is fucking terrible.
We want to thank Davide again. Thank you for coming on, and thanks for taking some time to talk about Toothe Fairy and to kind of just bat around our thoughts of Halloween Ends.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man. Yeah, thank you very much, guys, for having me. It was really, really fun, and yeah, it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me on your podcast. Of course, there's always an open invitation if you ever want to. All of our guests have open invitations if they ever want to come back and talk about a movie or talk some more about their projects. You're more than welcome. We'd love to have you again. Yeah, I'll definitely come back. And again, everybody, Toothe Fairy is on Amazon and in our upcoming book giveaway. Thank you for sticking with us for this upcoming season. I've been Chris Thomas, and with me, Broke Writer Dave. Have a good week, everybody. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to Body Bag Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe and leave us a comment as to what you'd like to hear us review, or any horror movie topics you'd like to hear us rant and rave about. And while you're at it, you can find us on Twitter at BodyBagPod and on Instagram at BodyBagPodcast. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.